you may know this next gentleman, Bill Brittingham. He's the owner of the Copper Kettle and also Brit's Pub downstairs, and he's always been an innovator, and his latest endeavor is to bring comedy to Wilmington. It's going to be called the Comedy Cabaret. It's going to be housed in the lower level where Brit's Pub used to be at the Copper Kettle, and it's going to debut Friday, November 13th. And I invite you all to go over to the Copper Kettle located at 916 Orange Street. And here with Bill is a fellow by the name of Andy Scarpati. He's the president of Scarpati Comedy Productions, who originally brought the concept to Bill, and he's a comedian in his own right, or so he claims to be. And he's toured the East Coast with his comedy concerts, and I want to welcome both Andy and Bill.
Thank you, Bob.
Bill, glad to have you back again.
Glad to be back, Bob.
Now, Bill, do you think comedy is going to make a go of it in Wilmington? Are we ready for comedy here?
I think so.
Yeah?
I went around with it for a couple of years, but I didn't know how to do it until Andy came along. I wanted professional, I wanted good,
You said before, Wilmington used to be a place that had a lot of comedy.
It was. Back, I'm dating myself now, back in the early 40s. There were clubs all over the town. Well, Joey Bishop was here.
Was he?
Yeah.
Where was this?
In the Moorish Room, down at Front and French, believe it or not.
That place has not been around for a while, I don't think.
The area was the same, but it was a beautiful club there. It was a supper club.
And we had a lot of the clubs in those days like that.
Yeah, really.
Now, Andy, what days and times is this comedy show going to appear?
Well, the comedy shows will be every Friday evening and Saturday. Friday, the shows start at 9:30,
right.
And Saturday, there's 2 shows at 8 and 11.
Okay, you got those times right?
8 and 11, yes.
Okay.
Make sure you come.
Okay. Now, is there a cover charge?
Yes, there is a cover charge. Very reasonable cover charge. We've batted the price around from anywhere from $25 to $36.50, but we have decided that $4 will be our cover charge.
Great.
For Friday or Saturday night, $4. So you can afford that, Bob.
What does that include?
What does that include? That includes top entertainment by professional comedians that tour the entire country.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, Andy, give us a little background about yourself and about the whole concept of what you're doing.
My background? Well, looks like we got carpet here. Maybe from Sears and Roebuck.
Let's try that once more.
A little humor.
How did you come to be?
Very little.
How did I come to be? No,
besides your mommy and daddy.
No, seriously, I've always been interested in comedy, stand-up comedians and stuff like that. And even when I was a little guy, you'd see the comedians on television. I'd say, hey, I wonder if those guys, how could you do that? So what I did is what all comedians must do, and that is go to New York. Go to New York City, the Mecca, that's the cradle of comedians. There's many comedy clubs up there. You go there, you wait in line, you audition. Once you pass your audition, you do what's known as late night. And what this entails is the comedian has to wait around after all the scheduled performers go on, and then they get their chance with who was ever left in the audience to be funny.
And then you worked out.
And you eventually worked yourself into the schedule, and that's what I did. And I was in New York City. I didn't particularly care for New York. I'm from the Philadelphia area. Decided to come back here, start my own production company, and set up my own shows. And now I'm in Delaware setting up shows. So
now we're going to have shows now. You've got Mike Egan you brought along tonight, right?
Yes, Mike is with us tonight.
And tell us a little about Mike we're about to see.
Mike Egan is a comedian. He started out as a DJ. As a matter of fact, he worked for a radio station here in Wilmington called Whams.
Owned by Rollins.
Owned by Rollins, yes it is. And now he's a comedian. He's stationed in New York, but he travels the entire country. He's done some public broadcasting work. He's appeared on cable TV, not this cable TV, Showtime cable TV. And we have a clip of Mike in one of his appearances.
Can we see that now?
Yes. Why don't we play that clip?
I'm very happy to have him here. Mike Egan. Big hand of applause. Hey. How you doing, Mike? Oh, I'm fine. Thank you. Well, listen, before I get started, I found out something today that was pretty exciting for me as far as, has anyone ever traced their lineage, find out where you come from? I found out the other day I'm related directly to George Washington. True story. I mean, people aren't that impressed anymore. You know, it's kind of a, what has he done lately attitude. But Washington actually was a great guy, if you think about it. Washington, I found out, was the father of our country. He was commander-in-chief, last white guy named Washington. Just a joke. You know, this comedy thing is kind of a temporary stopgap for me. I don't plan to do this forever. I'm just waiting. I'm hoping to hear from 7-Eleven. I have a... right now it's between me and this guy in a coma, and kind of like this. I don't know. He interviewed better, but I think I'm a harder worker. And he'll probably get the job, put him to work in frozen vegetables. You know how that is. It's one of those... If you've been to 7-Eleven lately, you know 7-Eleven has this policy of hiring the comatose. Have you ever been to 7-Eleven at 4 in the morning? There's something wrong with you if you have. And you go into 7-Eleven at 4 a.m., it takes you 30 minutes to pick out a set of Twinkies. And you're swaying to the music, there's no radio on. And it takes them twice as long to ring it up. You know there's something wrong with these people. I don't know what it is. See, the trouble with 7-Eleven is you have such a choice. You can get anything at 7-Eleven, you know? Should I go for the Twinkies or the snow shovel? I don't know. Kid, did your parents make you, when you were a kid, when they bought clothes for you, did they make you grow into things? Remember that? Listen, in a couple of years, it'll look great on you. Now, roll up your sleeve. You'll trip over it. So, Dad, it's a vest, for God's sake. You know what I'm saying? I was 7 years old, to illustrate this point. I was 7 years old. I made my first Holy Communion, very Catholic tradition. And I was 7. I got my first Holy Communion suit. My dad bought it for me. 42 regular. Said you'll grow into it. It was great. Had a vest. I turned it sideways and made a backpack out of it. Very nice. Played Pee Wee football, too, which is another thing about growing into stuff. I was on the 60-pound league. I was about this big. And I weighed 60 pounds. The equipment weighed 70 pounds. You never got hurt. You stood up. You fell down. It was a great sport. No head. The shoulder pads went above the helmet. First day of practice, the coach calls us over and said, "Men," and I love that. When you're 8 years old to be called a man. At home, it's, "Hey, schmuck, move away from the TV, would you, please? I want to watch the NFL highlights." Sorry, Dad. So out on the field, it was, "Men," and they said to us, they said, "You're going to have to get yourself an athletic cup." You know what I mean? I'm not talking... This stuff is like Tupperware. You can have a party in there if you like. It's great. And, I mean, if they kick you, they break their foot. This stuff is tough. Bullets will bounce off. So I went home and I told my dad, I said, "Dad, the coach said we had to get an athletic cup." And, of course, you remember my father had this theory of growing into things. Yeah. Got me a man's extra large cup. And never did grow into that, incidentally. But I remember I used to have to wear it on the outside to keep it up. It was an embarrassing thing. It was awful. It was.
Now, this is Mike Egan. Now, that sounds like a family audience type fellow, but are everyone you're going to have on suitable for family audiences?
No, I would say not, because most of the comedians, you know, they work nightclubs, and it gets pretty hectic at 2 o'clock in the morning with after some alcohol gets into your system. But Mike Egan will be one of the comedians on the first show.
Now, where do you find all these comedians?
90% of them come from New York City. There's a couple comedians around Philly that have some talent, but you know, most of them come from New York area.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go on, Bob? We'll put you on the first show.
Do you allow semi-professional amateurs on?
Are you a semi-professional amateur comedian or
Yes.
semi-professional amateur guest host, singer, songwriter?
All of the above.
Okay, well, we'll see what we can work out for you. We can't promise you.
Right. Well, after this, also, I want to know if you're going to have a guest amateur night. Can you have a guest amateur
Yes,
night?
what we tend to do, we're going to start having like 2 open slots on Friday nights, which means we'll have 2 places where someone can come up and try comedy for like 5 minutes.
Right.
You know, a 5-minute spot. But hopefully, if it goes the way we anticipate, we'll have a Thursday night open stage night, and anyone that thinks they're funny, come on down. We'll give you 5 minutes to prove it.
Great. Now, if they're not funny, they get the hook.
No, we let them suffer through 5 minutes. They had 5 minutes. And if they're not funny, well, listen, when you first start out, you're not very funny. It takes a long time to really develop, and it's a real tough skill to be funny in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you prove it a lot, I think. Just kidding you, Bob. I mean, come on.
Well, I take
we had a studio audience.
funny pills before I come on the show. That's what happens. Well, right now we're going to some short messages, but I want to thank these gentlemen for coming on, because Andy, you're going to be a real asset to this city, and Bill, thanks for providing the opportunity for Andy to set up this comedy workshop.
Thank you, William.
You're welcome.
Bill, you still with us?
I'm still.
Okay.
He's doing a good job anyway. I don't have to talk.
Bob, thanks for having us on the
Right.
show.
Stay right here.
Really appreciate it.
Stick around
Okay.
for the rest of the show.
right,
We're going to go to some short messages, and then we'll be back with more Focus Delaware. So don't go away.